Hey guys, Joe and Ribs here coming at you with another Spireside chat. Today I want to talk to you about Reaper, a rare for Ironclad, deals 4 damage to all enemies and heals you for any of the unblocked damage dealt. And it does exhaust itself when it does so. So Reaper, conceptually, like what it does, I think it's easy enough to understand what it does. It's an attack which deals less damage than an attack usually would, but you heal for the amount of damage which it deals. That said, it's a very, very unique card. There's nothing quite like this effect anywhere else in the game. The closest you're probably going to get would be Bites, which are a neutral card, which deal 7 damage and heal you for 2 HP, or for 3 HP when upgraded. That's another attack which, deals a little bit less damage than a really strong attack might, but heals you a little bit. But Reaper has this thing where the actual damage is what's healing you. So the more damage that you can get out of Reaper, the more you will heal. I should have mentioned Reaper when I did my pen nib video yesterday, because pen nibbing Reaper is a cool thing you can do. Just an aside. Whoops. So, Reaper is fascinating to me because this is the, in terms of card impact on decks, I think this card has more impact on certain decks than basically any other individual card in the Ironclad card pool, but it doesn't actually have that high a success rate for me. It has a slightly above average win rate. Runs where I've taken Reaper, I think I've won 75% of the time or something. And some of that's variance. My Ironclad Ascension 15 average is about a 70% win rate of late. So some of that could just be a bit of variance, but I think there is truth in that number. Reaper is insanely strong if you work out some way to scale in strength and some way to gain maximum hit points. But you sort of need to do both of them, and those conditions are difficult to achieve. If you can do both of those things, you reach a situation where it's almost impossible for you to lose the run, because you just make a bunch of strength, you play Limit Break a few times, you get to 50 strength or whatever, and then you play Reaper, and you heal for, let's say you're fighting 3 enemies, you heal for 150 health or something. So as long as you had 100 max HP at the start of the fight, and you didn't get attacked for 100 somehow, as long as you can do any form of blocking, even if your character can just put their arms over their face or something, that's probably enough. You're going to come out of the fight not dead, and not only not dead, but you're going to come out of the fight on max hit points. So that's a pretty cool thing to be able to do. So what you're looking for is maybe your run gets an early feed, so you have a lot of max hit points. Maybe your run gets some of the fruit relics, something like where are they? Something like a mango to raise your max HP by 14, something like a pear to raise your max HP by 10. You can get your max HP up pretty nicely on Ironclad in a number of ways. You might not actually know this, but the Fairy Fire event, where they ask you for a card and take a card out of your deck for you, if you give them a common, they just get rid of a common, and that's great. If you give them a curse, they'll give you the Spirit Poop relic, which is sort of funny. Where is it? It's unpleasant. This relic doesn't do anything. It gives you -1 score at the end of a run, and it's from this Spirit event. If you give them an uncommon, they'll give you a full heal, and if you give them a rare, they actually give you 10 max HP and a full heal. So I very regularly give a rare to that event on Ironclad and Silent, and I think on Ironclad it's especially valuable because of this use of max HP, where with Reaper and strength scaling you can use max HP to just create a huge buffer which enemies just can't reasonably churn through, and then you heal it all back at the end of the fight. So you want some way to create a bunch of HP, and then you want some way to gain strength. So Demon Form is a very obvious one. Limit Break is the other sort of huge and obvious one. Those tend to be... I mean, I'll grab a Spot Weakness, or Inflame I think is just generally a good card. I'll grab these to get myself going. But if I'm going to really scale in strength, it's typically with either Demon Form or Limit Break. There are some other things you can do. Rupture, whenever you lose HP from a card, gain 1 strength. If you couple this with something like Brutality, now you're gaining strength off Rupture. If you couple it with something like, you know, Hemokinesis. People who talk about archetypal decks will talk about the synergies between self-harm cards and Ironclad. The fact is that those synergies just aren't very strong. They're not strong synergies. They don't come together easily. At Ascension 15, you're very seldom going to have a deck that cares a whole lot about those synergies. And even if you have Reaper and a ton of max HP, I don't think that that's a good enough source of strength for your deck to typically be successful based on that strategy. It might be successful due to something else it's doing, but the concept of Reaper plus strength scaling is not really strong enough if you're basing your strength gain off Rupture. It's problematic that you're gaining 1 strength for every HP you lose, but Reaper only heals you for 1 health for each strength you gain. If you think about it, you need something else to be going on as well, like vulnerable on an enemy or multiple targets or pen nib or something like that to cause that to actually heal you in the end. And you can get more stuff going, but this is just, it's adding more hurdles that you have to jump through for the strategy to actually take off. Rupture plus Pain. Where are my curses? Pain is a curse which deals you 1 damage every time you play a card. And this is legitimately a ridiculous combination. So Rupture plus Pain, that'll give you a ton of strength. And the only problem with it is that it'll also cost you a ton of life and isn't necessarily the most consistent thing. So something you might want to look at in Act 3 when you already have a large health pool, or maybe in Act 2 if your deck is consistent enough and can afford to do that, you could pull it off. But Rupture Pain is not something that I'm really anticipating working for me. Rupture is not a card that I'm likely to take in Act 1, like ever. Even if I have a Hemokinesis in my deck, I'm not really interested in taking a Rupture because Inflame is just miles better. Whereas Demon Form and Limit Break, I'll take Limit Break with no other strength in the deck. A couple of days ago, I played a run on Ascension 15 where I played the entirety of Act 2 with a deck that could only really scale if I had a Strength Potion, so that I could get 1 strength for Limit Break, and then I had a Limit Break Plus, and it would go 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and by then they're dead. So yeah, I prioritize these cards very highly. I think that those work in a number of different ways, but those are basically the ways that I want to get strength going, and coupling those with Reaper is very, very strong. So yeah, that's like the concept. There are other things to talk about, like double tap and exhume, ways to play Reaper multiple times. Dual wield as well can do it. The fact is, though, that a lot of these, unless they're strong on their own merits in your deck, are watering down a concept which already works. You don't really need much more than 1 Demon Form in play in almost all fights for Reaper to be a full heal for you. You don't need to add a bunch of other cards which are only really good in combination with Reaper, because Reaper is already good enough. And so in situations where Reaper isn't good enough, these cards which are trying to make Reaper good are, you know, they're gonna get drawn in hands which don't have Reaper in them and then just be bad cards or something like that, and they're gonna make your deck even more inconsistent. So, you know, don't see double tap and just because you're playing Reaper think, oh great, this will be incredible with Reaper. If you're picking up double tap, you know, maybe it's because you have a Whirlwind in your deck and an Ice Cream as well as your Reaper or something like that. You want to have a little bit more stuff than just the Reaper to justify that card pickup. And I'd say the same thing about dual wield. If you have like Metallicize and Feel No Pain you can dual wield along with the Reaper, then yeah, probably dual wield's a pretty good pickup. But if you're just looking at the Reaper, I don't think dual wield's going to typically be a positive thing to add to your deck there. So yeah, the reason I'm talking about specifically this card and the strength scaling that goes along with it is when it works, it's insanely strong, but it is difficult to get this to work. You need enough max HP to compensate for any lack of block that you have. Like, if you have enough block to block anyway, it's not doing anything. So probably it's strong because your deck isn't super great at mitigating in other ways, and you actually need max HP to get a lot of value out of it in that situation. And then you do need your strength scaling to go, so you're pigeonholing yourself into being somewhat dependent on strength scaling for your win condition over something like body slam or an infinite combo, getting exhausted down to an infinite combo or something like that. This is one of, I think, 5 pretty reasonable and competent mitigation strategies for Ironclad. I don't know if I'll get through all of them, but this is, I think, sort of the coolest one. It's the one that feels the most ridiculous when you play it, just like Reaper's strength. When I was playing Twitch chat drafts and we were moving our way up through the Ascension ranks, I was allowed to buy things in stores, and so there was a run where like Twitch chat took a Reaper early, and I got to a store and there was a demon form there, and I like just bought it, and none of the other cards that went into the deck ever mattered. Like, we were going to win because the strength of this combination is very, very overwhelming. Now, that run wasn't at Ascension 15, but even at Ascension 15, this can be very strong. So yeah, that's Reaper. Reaper's like an okay card without strength scaling. I'll take it early on and expect it to be fine. The fact that it exhausts is nice with stuff like Dark Embrace or Feel No Pain. Feel No Pain is currently my highest priority card pick over Offering, which is just because I haven't seen Offering enough for the equation I'm using to justify that, to realize how high I value Offering. But yeah, it has some nice interactions with other stuff for sure, and it's nice that it deals more damage to vulnerable things and what have you. But in general, it's a card that feels pretty binary. Either it really, really takes off and makes you want to like vomit, or it's just sort of unimpressive, sort of bloating and almost in the way of your deck. Alright, thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the chat. I have links to Discord and Twitch and stuff like that below the video here, and feel free to let me know what you think of Reaper, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.